activate a blog on a client site that does not have one. So our example today will be South Bay Ford. They already have a blog, so it's a good example to use so you can see what it looks like before and after. So when we go to southbayfordcommercial.com, you'll just go over to the About Us tab here, you'll click on blog, and then you can see basically the various blog posts that are already posted here. So we're going to show you today how to basically get this up and running if a particular client does not have a blog but would like one. First step would be to go into the Blueprint CMS, and we're going to go ahead and log in. Once we log in, we'll go into the top right and search for our client. So in this case, it's going to be South Bay Ford Commercial. Once you pull that up, you'll get greeted here with the stats dashboard, but for right now, we're not going to concern ourselves with that. Click on the Pages icon in the top blue ribbon, and you'll immediately be greeted with the different folders and subfolders that fall under the Pages section for this particular client. So to add a blog page, typically you'll go into the root folder and you'll hit Add Page, unless the client specifies they want their blog page in a different subdirectory, but 100% of the time, 99% of the time, they're going to want it in root. The name, you'll simply name it blog. Friendly URL automatically populates, as you can see there. Copy content from, if there's specific styling or JavaScript that you want from a blog that say you're using for a different client, could be for another Ford client. In this case, since we're utilizing South Bay Ford Commercial, you would just enter in the GUID there and hit Add Page. What that'll do is it'll actually bring all over that styling and text and images and CSS and JavaScript over. So all you have to do is just swap out, any specific blog settings you may want to change or any content you may want to change. But for the most part, we're going to leave that blank. Very rarely have I copied content from an other blog page for a different client to a new client that would like a blog page. Link content from, of course, works in a very similar fashion, except with link, you're not actually editing the content on the page. It's literally just copying it over, and you're leaving it as is. This works great if you need to grab some content over from like a master site. So like, let's say for the Ford of Canada program on the master site, if there was a GUID that you needed to utilize from there, you could bring it over to a specific FOC, because in that case, with FOC, a lot of the stylings are going to remain the same, site over site over site. So that's the only time you use link content from, but for this example, we'll keep it blank, and then next step would just be to add page. But since this already has a blog, we'll hit close, and let's just search for it real quick. Looks like, okay, so in this case, they actually put in a folder called blog index. So this particular client wanted it in a specific folder called blog, so they went against the stream there and wanting it in that folder, which is fine. So once you pull that page up, you'll see here South Bay Ford Commercial blog appears, and at the bottom you'll see here there's what's called a blog list. Now you may be asking, how did they get that there? You're simply going to go up to the toolbar here at the top of the page and go ahead and click on Add Blog List. So once you click there, you'll be greeted with various options for your blog list that's ultimately going to appear on your blog page. You can assign it a category, or you can have it show only specific categories, and I'll show you in a minute how we get to these categories. Looks like in this example there's only one, which is fine. We'll leave it as all categories for now. These are basically the categories that the blogs that you've posted are associated with. Entries per page, we'll leave that as 2 by default, and then down here you can see show read more buttons, show authors. You can basically customize it however you want your blogs to appear on that page per the client's request. By default, it checkmarks everything, but if there's specific things the client wants to show or does not want to show, you can go down here and make those changes. override date format. So if you have, I know with European clients, sometimes they show the day before the month in the way the date is formatted. Here, you can make those changes. Domestic U.S. clients tend to show the month, day, and the year. So just check in with your client manager or your account manager to see, how the client would like their date format to appear on their blog page. Translations, you can go up on in here, and if you're posting, let's say, for a Brazilian site or for a site in French Canadian, for an FOC, you can go in here and type in specific translations for filter by, toggle navigation, all categories, read more, and read more posts. If you decide not to do translations or they're not required, then by default, these sections will show in English. Once you click add, then you simply just drag and drop where you would like to add the blog list. But for now, we'll hit close since it's already here. So typically you'll add it in this block 2. Once you add it, you just hit save as revision. That marks the page as saved, and then you can always publish the latest revision to QA or production, just to check out how your blog page looks from a styling perspective before publishing it live. I would always recommend publishing it to QA first, just to make sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So once you have your page created, I would recommend the next step for you to initiate would be to add it to a specific menu in your header. So you can see here with South Bay Ford, they added the blog link right under About Us. So we would simply just go to Primary under Menus, and if we go down to About Us, you'll see here is Blog, and that's where they added it. So when you want to add a blog to the menu, the header or the footer, you would simply give it a label. In this case, we'll just call it Blog. CSS class, if you want it hidden initially, you can just type hidden, and that'll prevent the link from showing in the header in this case, or the footer if you decide to do that. And then if you decide to go back and maybe the client changes their mind and they want it to show now in the header or footer, you can simply just delete the hidden association there. URL, so this is where you're going to go and search for the actual page you just created. So we'll type blog. You'll see here, there it is, blog folder, and it's called index. So you'd select that. Target. So more often than not, you're going to select self. Basically what this means is when a user clicks, or hovers rather, over About Us and clicks on blog, it opens within the same page. But if you select blank, new tab window, then when a user hovers over About Us and clicks on blog, I'm going to manually do it, but when you would click on it, it would basically show up like this in a new tab. This particular blog is set up in such a way of self, same window. So I would leave it as self, same window unless the client specifies otherwise. Once you hit add, it automatically adds to the bottom of your header, and then you can literally just drag and drop it where you want it. So in this case, it was under About Us. So once you have it added to the header, I would recommend repeating the same thing to the footer. Rinse and repeat what you did to the header to the footer. And then if they want it under shopping tools, very rare, but also don't forget to take care of that menu too, if the client insisted if they want it under shopping tools. Step 3 would be to actually verify your blog category. So I would click on the blog icon there under the hamburger menu, and you'll be greeted here with posts, default settings, and blog categories. You're going to go ahead and go into the default settings. So this is where all your blog categories show up, right? So for South Bay Ford Commercial, they only have one, which is fine. It's a food truck. And so, most of their blogs are either going to be associated with the food truck category in this case, or they're not going to be associated with any category. They're just going to be open, which is fine too. If you wanted to add a category, you just simply click that button right there on the right, go ahead and give it a name, hit add category. Conversely, if you want to delete a category, you can click on the settings button there and hit delete. So once you have that squared away, you can go into your blog categories and actually go on in here and see what blogs are associated with different categories. So in this case, just like I suspected, there's several blogs here that don't have a category, which is what the client would like, except for this one here that's tagged as a food truck. So if I wanted to say tag this 2018 Ford Transit Connect van with food truck, I could literally just start typing food and then it fills in the rest for me. So this is basically how the categories connect with what you saw on the blog landing page, if you remember in the settings, and what you're seeing here in the blog entries. So make sure your blog categories are filled out on the default settings tab under blog entries, so that way what you see on your blog landing page is correct, and you're also associating the blogs that you posted on your landing page with the correct categories as well. Because, you know, if the client wants specific categories and they're not there, you know, they're going to bring that up. So once you have all that good to go and set, one way to activate a blog is to post it first. You just click Add Post and fill out these fields. There's actually another training video that I completed that you can reference that goes over on adding a post. Once you hit Add Post, then that'll by default add it to the bottom here of the page. And once you see that on the bottom of the page, by default it'll show as inactive. So to simply activate a page, you just click on the inactive button, and then that green lights it to active. And then from there, you could just click on up here to the publishing button. You can publish it to QA. You can publish it to production based on what you want to test out and see how it looks. Maybe if it's ready for the live site, you can just publish it to production and you're good to go. And that will basically make it live. Another way to activate a blog is to actually go into the blog if it's inactive and just hit Save as Revision. Once you hit Save as Revision, by default that activates the blog and makes it so that you can publish it to QA again or production based on how you see fit, if it's ready to go live or not. So that goes over how to insert and activate a blog.